Jaden Ivey had to be stretchered off the court earlier tonight after suffering what appeared to be a pretty significant injury to his left ankle / lower leg. And in this video, we'll take a closer look at the injury mechanism, talk about what exactly could have happened here, and the ultimate severity. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and the goal in this channel is to teach you more about the medical side of the sports world. So we're going to be taking a look here tonight at what happened with Jaden Ivey. Now, of course, we saw all the way at the end of this sequence, of course, Ivey's got his left lower leg probably in some sort of a vacuum splint or an immobilization device, which hints at the ultimate severity. Whenever you see somebody with their joint being immobilized to this degree, taken off on a stretcher, that implies there's probably some type of fracture and or joint dislocation. And this degree of immobilization is being done because you need to protect, you need to stabilize that joint while you get somebody off to the hospital. Looking at this play for Ivey, I would think of this as the injury mechanism that causes a high ankle sprain. This is just the extreme version of what can happen when it's more severe. So here, as Ivey is trying to get the ball here, we see the Orlando defender dive in. I'm not going to get into whether or not this was like a rough play or not. You know, guy's just trying to make a play, but certainly Anthony diving into his leg is what causes this injury to occur. The foot in this position of Ivey, you can see how it's pointed forward and planted onto the ground. So then as the Magic player comes and dives in here, you're going to cause this valgus force to be loaded into that leg, but his foot and ankle get essentially stuck on the ground. So in this position, that foot is now externally rotated, pointed out to the side, while that load is coming in on that leg. And what that's going to do is it's going to put this torsional, this rotational stress through the ankle joint, and I suspect ultimately cause a fracture of potentially the inner part of his ankle, also potentially leading to an ankle dislocation or at least an unstable ankle joint. When we see this happen, what can typically occur on the more minor side is you can get either a sprain of the deltoid ligament complex that sits on the inside part of the ankle with an eversion mechanism. More commonly, you get tearing of that high ankle sprain ligament, that syndesmosis that connects that lower portion of the fibula to the tibia and results in a high ankle sprain. But if the energy is high enough, the force gets transmitted in just the right way, you can ultimately extend that trauma to the ankle enough that you cause a fracture plus or minus a dislocation. Looking at our biodigital anatomy tool here, straight on, this is going to be the tibiotalar, the ankle joint. Here's our tibia, the shin bone. This is going to be the fibula. And so this is going to be the outer portion of the ankle. If we rotate this around and look at the back, of course, that load from the Magic player is coming in this direction while the foot is pointed outward. So what that's going to do at a minimum is it's going to cause this talus within the ankle joint to rotate externally, which puts tension on this AITFL ligament, causing it to want to pull, leading to typically the high ankle sprain type of injury pattern. However, if the force is transmitted high enough and in the right way, ultimately that ligament can fail. The next stabilizing structures are going to be the bone, specifically the medial malleolus, the lateral malleolus. And so you can get a fracture of this medial or lateral malleolus, the distal part of the fibula. And depending on which of the ligaments, the extent of the break, sometimes an ankle dislocation. Now, I suspect because we saw them put on this vacuum splint, there was enough gross instability in the ankle that they were worried about an unstable joint. And that spectrum between the joint being completely dislocated versus just an unstable joint with a fracture is a little bit of just kind of splitting hairs for the sake of this discussion. But whenever you get enough of the break in the bony stabilizers and the ligament stabilizers, this joint is unstable. And so another bit of excessive force or something like that can cause it to completely dislocate. We couldn't really tell exactly with Ivey if it truly dislocated like a Gordon Hayward type of situation, or if it was just potentially what we call a bi or a trimalleolar fracture, which still is treated like an unstable ankle in terms of what all has to get put back together and ultimately constructed. I don't think this was a fracture of like higher up in the tibia or higher up in the fibula like we saw with, for example, Aiden Hutchinson in the NFL. I suspect what we're dealing with here is an ankle fracture plus or minus dislocation. If that's the case, probably would expect that he's going to be done for the year if it is an unstable joint with multiple parts of the bone fractured. If all that happened was just one of these two parts of the malleoli being broke, potentially a return later this season. But typically when we see this degree of trauma, immobilization with that vacuum splint, concern for multiple fractures through the ankle with possible dislocation, typically that's going to be a seasoning type of injury. Now, there's a lot of time left in the NBA season, depending on where the Pistons go and what they want to do with his recovery, but I would ultimately be prepared for this to be a season-ending injury, unfortunately, for Ivey. So that's it for the video, everybody. Thank you again for watching. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.